So Prince Harry resigned as a patron of Sentebale, the charity he co-founded in 2006 with Prince Seeiso of Lesotho to support vulnerable children affected by HIV/AIDS in Southern Africa in two countries, Botswana and Lesotho. The decision follows a significant internal dispute within the organization involving Dr. Sophie Chandauka, the chairwoman of the Sentebale board. The conflict arose due to breakdown in the relationship between the charity's trustee and Dr. Chandauka. The trustees collectively requested her resignation, citing concerns over governance and leadership. However, Dr. Chandauka refused to step down, and subsequently she filed a lawsuit against the charity to retain her position. In response, the entire board of trustees resigned, leading Prince Harry and Prince Seeiso to step down in solidarity with the trustees. They expressed their, devastation over the situation, describing it as unthinkable and emphasizing their continued commitment to Sentebale's beneficiaries. Now, Dr. Chandauka has defended her actions, stating that she acted as a whistleblower to expose the issues within this charity, including allegations of poor governance, weak executive management, abuse of power, bullying, harassment, and discrimination. She has reported these concerns to the UK Charity Commission, which is currently assessing the situation to determine appropriate regulatory steps. This upheaval has led to significant restructuring within the Sentebale, with plans to recalibrate the board as part of the charity's transformative agenda. Despite these challenges, Prince Harry and Prince Seeiso have reiterated their unwavering support for their organization's mission and the young people it serves. We need to analyze Dr. Chandauka's behavior from the corporate perspective. We can look at the several grounds around, leadership, governance, ethics, risk management. So we can look at the governance and board dynamics here. So the role of a whistleblower versus the board cohesion. So, just look at the impact of the board's chair escalating concerns to the UK regulators versus handling them internally. The board responsibility. Was it appropriate for Dr. Chandauka as a board chairwoman to publicly oppose or litigate against trustees' decision? We can also look at fiduciary duty. to consider whether her actions align with the fiducious responsibility. The fiducious responsibility look at the duty of care, loyalty, and acted in good faith. Well, and the second thing we could look at this case would be around leadership style and conflict management. The crisis leadership, to assess how she managed this internal conflict. Was it transparent and strategic? You know, how you manage the crisis leadership, the internal conflict. Was this management of this issue within Sentebale transparent and strategic, or was it combative and divisive? And we can also look at the stakeholder communication. Did she communicated her concerns in a way that built trust? Or did it exacerbate division? Okay. And we can look at also from executive oversight, where her criticism of management a sign of due diligence or overreach. Now, the third thing we could look at this case would be around ethical consideration. Now, whistleblowing ethics. Was her decision to escalate concerns externally an ethical obligation or a breakdown in internal processes? I'm leaning to the breakdown in internal processes here. That a person who's a chairwoman to file for lawsuit and then to file for a complaint to the regulator. That sounds to me a breakdown in internal processes. Also, we can look at allegation of misconduct. That's very important here because that's to analyze how serious the issue she has raised should be taken from an ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance, and also from the reputational standpoint. The third thing we could look at from this ethical consideration would be looking at the cultural sensitivity. We need to consider whether she navigated the cultural context of an African-based charity sensitively around funding, because she really going to rely on having international donors continue to support this beneficiary of this charity. So the cultural sensitivity in how she managed this issue is quite important when we consider the ethical consideration of this case. Okay. Now, the fourth one would be around legal and reputational risk. Okay. Litigation impact. Okay, she's filed this lawsuit. Now, we need to examine her decision to sue the charity. Could actually expose the organization, this organization, the Sentebale, to reputational and financial risk. I mean, there are reports that since she took over, Sentebale was actually wasn't generating a lot of revenue. They were relying on this polo that Prince Harry initiated as a form of to actually support Sentebale's mission. So, I mean, you could argue then, well, would you, if you really care about this company and this charity, taking it to litigation, and this could expose this charity to some financial risk, which is highly, because it wasn't making a lot of, since she took over, she actually did not generate any revenue. She was just, she did not improve. In fact, the Sentebale charity declined since she took over. Now you gotta look at charity commission involvement. So we need to evaluate the risk and implication of regulatory scrutiny for nonprofits. I'm also this regulator. I'm just wondering. So this organization is actually registered in the UK. It's not registered in Lesotho. Why is she moving to the UK? Is it not registered in Lesotho? You know, we need to question this stuff. You know, there were a lot of stuff that came out around USAID funded organization, and looking at where the trail of money. If member states or countries don't have a lot of a regulatory framework and policy how they register this organization, the non-profit organization, they are actually exposed to a lot of risk, security risk. And because we know from the data I've seen around USAID is that they don't fund what they say they're going to fund. To be honest, they fund a lot of things that they fund is to change government and to just support some political party and also to fund certain groups in order to have certain impact, to enforce certain culture within that organization. So the issue here is that member states need to actually have laws that govern registration and also policy around non-profit organization when they come to their own countries. So things like that can be managed within the jurisdiction of that country. So if a lot of these NGO, they start these, they register in the Western society and then move on to Africa and other developing countries. But the mission and the outcome is not clear. And actually, But anyway, with the Harry's organization, I know that they've been audited many times. They seem to be on a good path until she took over, Dr. Sophie Chandauka. Okay. Now, the fifth thing would be change management. Now, looking at transformational versus disruptive leadership. Oh, gosh. Was she actually driving a necessary reform or creating instability? One needs to ask that question. Was she intended to reform this organization, Sentebale, that was really driving before she took over, or was she a disruptor? And also we have to look at the strategic alignment, where her goals align with the charity's mission and long-term strategy. Okay, so that is the things that I think we need to look at. This one here. So we can look at the strength and also look at from the consent perspective to be fair around governance and fiduciary responsibility. Governance and fiduciary responsibility. Look at the strength around governance vigilance. So she identified and acted on alleged issues such as weak management, bullying, discrimination, abuse of power. So from the governance perspective, we could say, that reflects someone with a commitment to integrity and fiduciary oversight. But then we can look at the escalation of concerns. Okay. Reporting the charity's Sentebale commission may be viewed as some feeling that she fulfilled her duty to stakeholders, if internal mechanism had failed. Now, here's the thing, the concerns now. Would the board cohesion break down? This looks like there was a huge breakdown within the cohesion of the board. The fact that, and the reason why I'm saying is that the fact that the entire board resigned in protest suggests to me like a failure in that collaborative governance and mutual trust. And then we can look at some of the concern, like the litigation against the charity. Suing the organization you chair is highly unconventional, to be honest. You know, she is the one who chaired this organization. I mean, she is the face of this organization. And yeah, it's unconventional. And it just signaled to me a serious governance breakdown and actually risk damaging Sentebale's charity's reputation, and also may be viewed, and are viewed, as a self-defeating from a mission-based leadership perspective, really. Now, we can go to the second part, which is leadership and conflict management. We look at the strength and also look at the concerns. Now, let's start with the strength. The courage leadership, okay, from the strength point of view, courage leadership, and you know, taking a stand against a perceived systemic issues requires courage and can be framed as transformative leadership. That is the strength. And focus on values, you know, her framing of conflict around ethics like anti-misogyny, anti-racism, position her as a values-driven. That's her strength. That's the strength, okay? That's her strength. However, when you look at the concerns, the escalation tactics, you know, public conflict and litigation instead of resolution through mediation or board processes, to me, it reflects a confrontational style, not well suited for people who are required in the high trust governance role as a chairwoman. That's number one. My second concern is the stakeholder alienation. If you lose the support of the trustee, meaning Prince Harry and Prince Seeiso, you know, trustee and the patrons, Prince Harry and Prince Seeiso, if she's lost that trust, because they resign, you know, so for, you know, in support for the trustees, you know, to me that suggests a potential lack of consensus building and also diplomacy from her part. Now, the third thing we look at is the ethics and whistleblower framing. Now, we look at the strength again, you know, the ethical vigilancy, which is, you know, taking an informal whistleblower role, could also reflect a commitment to transparency and justice within the organization. And the second thing, the strength would be around the duty to report misconduct. If you know, legitimate issues were being ignored by Sentebale, well, she arguably had an ethical responsibility to act as a chairwoman. But my concern again is timing and transparency. You know, if the whistleblowing happened after the conflict rather than as part of structured internal review, in this case, it actually, I perceive it as reactive or retaliation, really. She actually, her action suggests to me she acted as a retaliation to after this, you know, this conflict. You know, it wasn't something that happened because they were, you know, reviewing. Yeah, so yeah, actually, yeah, I think people could perceive this, and many people are talked to that it's actually may suggest a reactive and or some retaliation from her part. And then we can look at public perception risk. You know, airing the internal disputes publicly may backfire ethically if it's seen as damaging to beneficiaries and donors, which in this case, I feel that this one, it will backfire on her part, because, when we know about the need around Lesotho, it's really dire. So, yeah, I don't know what these people do anyway. She's from Zimbabwe. So she's a Zimbabwe national. Now, the fourth thing is risk and reputational management. The strength, proactive accountability. She, that's the strength she has. Highlighting risk within the organization could help avoid deeper reputational damage in the future. That's true. There also goes to that concerns around litigation and media exposure. The lawsuits, the media attention, and the departure of the founding patron increase this reputational and financial risk. This organization is unlikely to succeed and actually to be actually sustainable as a result of this action, because it actually makes it difficult for donors to actually support this organization. So it also, another concerns around organizational stability. Her action, precipitates the leadership vacuum, affecting the trust and continuity, key pillar in risk management. Your trust and continuity. This is the issue that are my concerns around her action. And the overall strategic impact. A positive interpretation would be around a leader forcing an uncomfortable but necessary transformation. You would view her as such if you look at this from a positive interpretation perspective of her action. But another part would be when you look at negatively around negative interpretation would be about a breakdown of governance processes that result in public damaging leadership crisis. So it is a very concerning chain of events, and I just want to see when she was actually appointed. I don't know if I can find when she was appointed. It looks like she was appointed recently, because I read somewhere that she she tried to change how Sentebale works, and I'll just have a look here and see if I can find Dr. If she really what happened to her, what she started when she started at Lesotho as becoming the chairwoman of Sentebale. She was appointed in July 2023. Only 2 years. Oh, really? July 2023 she was appointed. Not even 2 years. It's not even July 2020. I mean, yeah. So it's 1.5. Whoa. She was appointed in July 2023 as a chairwoman for Sentebale. Yeah. Oh. I'm not going to say anything right now. Don't want to get myself in trouble, but she hasn't been in this home for that long. and she's already created a lot of problems. That's all I'm going to say about it. Thank you guys for listening. Comment below. What do you think? Oh, golly. Yeah, this is about leadership. Okay, thank you. Bye for now.